Okay, so here we go. We're in chapter 11. So we did the first two videos, and then the third video was your homework for yesterday. And we're looking at how to prepare ourselves. So this chapter is kind of tied into the previous one in terms of investing. So the idea of a IRA or 401k is that, let me get my little scribbler on here. So 401k, 403b, 457, an individual retirement arrangement. So that's our IRA. And then both of these can be potentially Roth style IRAs. And so I'd like you to go to the chat box, and we talked about the cookie jar, we talked about the coat, and definitely for the final exam, you're gonna have a handle on this. So what's the cookie jar, what's the coat is what I want you to answer in the chat box here. What's the cookie jar and what is the coat? There's my coat, there's my cookie jar. So we got, what is the cookie jar? What's it symbolizing? And what's the coat symbolizing? Go to the chat box. First person with the correct thing here is probably extra credit today. See who's awake. Cookie jar and coat. What's the cookie jar? What's the coat? All right, looks like the chat box is lighting up. Yaniel, that is the right answer to a different question. So Yaniel, your cookies are going to be made up of some stuff. I'll come back to your comment. So what is the cookie jar with the cookies in it, I guess? All right, the cookie jar, Rachel, good, is the investment, and the coat is what protects the investment from taxes. All right, so the coat is the tax benefits established by the government. So that you can think of this as kind of, I guess, a government-created benefit, right? So this is kind of government-related. And this, the cookies, is the market, the free market, Wall Street and businesses, Home Depot, right? So if we had just a completely free market where the government didn't get involved with providing tax benefits, the cookies would still live on. Back in the old days, early 1900s, you could buy investments and buy companies. So all the stuff we talked about in chapter 10 was still alive. So that's the cookies. So the coat now is the government recognizing that they're not going to have enough money to pay you guys when you retire through Social Security, and they want to give incentives to Americans to save. And so the coat provides those saving benefits. And so I spent some time last time working through that whiteboard of what a tax benefit means. And so let me go to the chat box. How about Roth versus regular IRA? What was the difference in the tax treatment? Like, when do you get when is the tax benefit? When is the tax benefit for a regular IRA? Is it pre-tax or at the end of the investment? So basically at the beginning or at the end. So Roth, you get taxed before, and regulars at the end. All right, so as far as when the timing of the tax comes due, the benefit of the tax, you have basically no tax at the end with the Roth. So no tax at the end of your investment, which is pretty nice because then you don't have to worry about what the tax rates are going to be. So at the end of the investment, that is what the Roth does for you. And so the regular IRA or 401k, if it doesn't have that word Roth in front of it, then you get the tax benefit now. So the tax break is today. Sorry, that break doesn't look very good there. I'm using my big fat finger here. Tax break today. And so I worked through how the tax break would work. You're going to reduce your taxable income today when you have that type of code. So when you go to what we're going to work on Friday, we'll spend a little more time on is when you go to work for an employer, a lot of times there's going to be some sort of retirement plan benefits. Unfortunately, I already told you this happens with companies around, so Ottawa University is not unique, but they did suspend temporarily, however long that this has happened before, they did suspend my retirement contribution because of the COVID crisis. So right now, I'm not getting any retirement match. But prior to that, I put in some money and Ottawa University puts into money. So that's a company, kind of a company retirement plan. And it's actually a 403B because Ottawa University is a nonprofit company. So that's the type of coat that I was using for part of my retirement savings. All right, so now to get back to Yaniel with what's these cookies. So when I go to Wall Street, there's a financial product called a mutual fund, and it allows you to buy lots of small companies all in one spot. So when you buy one share of that mutual fund, that's called a small cap mutual fund, you're going to instantly buy maybe 200 companies, let's say. And so you're instantly getting the diversification, the big D word that we started off with back in chapter 10. And so then these cookies now represent small cap, mid cap, large cap, and international. And so when you tuck away money each paycheck into your retirement plan, you can have it set up so that it's automatically putting money into those things that you directed it to. So it's a very much under your power, the way retirement savings goes with these plans. And then again, as these grow from, you put in, you ended up ultimately letting this grow to $1 million. Once you get to the time where you want to retire, if they were Roth money, you're not going to pay any tax on it. If it was a regular one, you already got the tax benefit before, so now you're going to pay some tax on that money if it's a regular IRA after the investment's grown. All right, so a little bit of review from 10, because I think that helps motivate the stuff that we're doing here. So we talked about different plans in the, whoa, I'm crazy. Distinction between the Roth, so that was section 1. And then there's other types of plans that we want to be knowledgeable about. A pension plan is something that's almost extinct now. There's the comment on 403B is for nonprofits and churches. So different types of plans all the way through. The rollover. So let me just comment on this real quick. The rollover is basically the government wanting to make sure, so government monitored change. Now the government is actually trusting your broker. So let's say that you want to, in fact, Corey and I were talking about this after class last time. If you have your money at Edward Jones, so Ed Jones, and you have $100,000 worth of your money, or let's say $10,000 because I put the comma in there for some reason, and you move to another company, or maybe you start a job at another company and you really like their retirement plan, you can transfer this $10,000 over to your new job plan, the plan that your new job has. But to do that, you have to do the right kind of paperwork. You never want this money to hit your checking account because that will ruin the tax benefit, the tax preference. So basically the coat the coat's going to stay on that money. If you had a coat on it, these look like a pair of pants here, but the coat's going to stay on the 10,000 when you bring it over, you roll it over to your new company plan. And that way, if it was a Roth money or if it was a traditional money, you don't create a taxable event if you do this at a point in time. All right, so our monthly retirement planning, let me shrink this down a little bit. So they give you this worksheet, and here's the plan that you guys are going to have due for homework tomorrow night, is to do one of these exercises. And you're really kind of playing the role of a financial planner. So the assignment's going to be to determine how much per month you should be saving if you are earning an interest rate of 12% in order to retire at 65 with the amount that you need. So part of retirement planning is to say, how much money would I like to have per month when I retire? So let's kind of think about that. Let's say that you were, you're currently earning, $60,000 a year. So 60,000 per year. And if you've been following the baby steps, go to the chat box here. Do you have any debt? If you are at retirement, will you have any debt, even house debt, most likely 30, 40 years from now? At retirement, are you going to have any debt? No. Good, Brooks. So now what's different here is that we got to think, well, shoot, I've been making $60,000 a year. I might have had a house payment of $1,400 a month, right? But I finally paid that off or whatever. So 60,000 divided by 12 gives you, and this is 12 months, gives you $5,000 per month. So this is kind of a nice way for people to think about retirement planning. Is like, what would life be like if I was just getting $5,000 a month? Is that enough money for me to go on the trips I want to go on, to visit my family, go out to restaurants, go out to have season tickets to the Kansas City Chiefs, season tickets to, something else, have a boat and a slip at the marina, if you're a fisherman, whatever. So you kind of imagine what retirement life's going to be like, and then you put a price tag on it. So if you've come up with $5,000 a month being the right price tag, then we're going to work backwards to say, how much money would I need to be saving each month to get to the level that would give me $5,000 a month? So these steps here are kind of there's also an investment calculator that we'll look at later, but this is kind of the basics of it. So step number one, if you save at 12% and inflation is at 4%, then you are moving ahead of inflation at an 8% rate. We haven't talked a lot about inflation, but you guys probably know that prices go up in general over time, right? So if we're planning for 40 years from now, the price of a loaf of bread, the price of beer, the price of chicken wings, all of that stuff's going to go up. And so for retirement planning purposes, you can put in an inflation rate. Now, I would probably use some different numbers than this example for reality. Just because I'm an economist, I kind of know a little bit more than the average Joe on inflation. And our targeted inflation is about 2% per year, 2 to 3%. So to be conservative, you could do 3% or 2%. And then also whatever you're earning on your investment, 12% is probably a little aggressive. But again, this is why it's personal finance class. But if you use 10%, minus 2% inflation, then you're still staying ahead 8%, which is what this problem is bringing up. So now we're going to use 8% is the amount of earnings that I need to get to get my nest egg up to where I want it to be. And so step number two, to achieve this nest egg, you will need to save at 12% netting 8. So we will target that 8%. And so this is, let me just actually clear this out and move this up a little bit. So this little factor here is looking at your age. So if you guys are currently 20, let's say, and you've got 45 years ahead of you going to age 65, then you've got an 8% factor of 0.00019. And so if you take that number, you're going to take your annual income today that you wish to retire on, which is $60,000. If you guys have a calculator handy, or you can pull it up on your laptop, I'd like you to actually do this. So $60,000 annual income that you wish to retire on, divided by 0.08, and put in the chat box your answer. I actually don't have the answer. Okay, good. So Jeffrey, let's have a couple people do it to just double check your work. 750,000, good. So that means you need to have your retirement grow to $750,000 to get to that level. So now multiply your nest egg by your 8% factor. So now take the 750,000 times this 0.00190. Put that in the chat box. 142.50 is Hunter. Let's get a couple people just verifying that. Again, I haven't worked this out ahead of time. I don't even have a calculator at my disposal. I'm going to rely on you guys. Sounds like it's in the right ballpark. Somebody give me a second on 142.50, unless you got a different answer. If you got a different answer, just put it up there. We'll get multiple people putting up there. Okay, Austin, you seconded Hunter's 142.50. So 142.50. Oops, this is, sorry, 142.50. This is that they wanted you to put in the 0.001 here is what we're inserting there. So that is your amount per month that you need to save to get up to $750,000. So now out of every paycheck, if you get paid monthly, you would need to do 142.50. Now, does 142.50 sound doable even as a college student, or is that just an unbelievable amount of money to get up to there? Not too bad, right? 142.50. So you guys are really doing some retirement planning worksheets. You can actually help your parents or your brother or sister or friends that are looking to do this. You can really apply this material to get up to where they want to be. All right. So that's the monthly retirement calculation. You can do it different ways using the calculators online as well. Let me do a 10-second pause for questions. All right. So here's the third section here. So this talks about the matching that I've already talked about a bit. So we're going to have a exercise on Friday that we'll do with matching. And look at that. I'm going to go ahead and now foreshadow what this last section is going to be. It's just a 14-minute video. We'll have it as homework so that you guys can have all the videos out of the way for Friday. So child savings accounts. So baby step number 5. Who's got baby step number 5? Why don't you put that in the chat box here? I guess you got it right in front of you. Maybe you don't have the chat box. I didn't realize that they told you right here. So baby step number 5 is the college fund for your kids. And there is a coach, maybe from the chat box, how many of you had somebody do some sort of education savings account? Did anybody here, and I'm not going to ask you details of it or whatever, but maybe grandpa, grandma, mom and dad, or did anybody have an education savings account that maybe you had since they started it when you were 10 or whatever? Okay, so Austin, Maddie, good. So Hunter, oh, lots of you. Okay, Hannah, Rachel. So this is the type of thing you can do. So if you start when your kid's young, you're basically going to do the same thing we're doing, but your target date is different, right? Because if you start with a kid who's 1 year old and the 1 year old is going to be 18 and ready for college, then we want to be putting some cookies in cookie jars during this 17-year period, roughly. And the idea here with what we've learned is that you can be pretty aggressive with your cookies, similar to our retirement cookies of small cap, mid cap. You know, if you got a 10-year window, you're probably fine till age 10 or so, let's call it. You know, depending on your taste for risk, you might go a little bit further. But then as your child starts to get close to college age, we don't want COVID crisis to come and knock out our education fund, right? So all of a sudden we had a nice chunk saved up for your education. You had 50,000 and then they're age 16 and all of a sudden the market value goes down to 30,000 and you just lost a year's worth of tuition, right? So that is where it's a little bit different for the college savings. All right. So then Dave kind of gets into things that you shouldn't do, and that's where we'll leave section 4. So finishing up the video sections, we'll have you do that before our class Friday, so we'll have that on your agenda. And I got to go all the way back up to the top here, shrink it down. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is look at the rule of 72. So you guys can open up your thing. We'll do a little bit of work with this. We're also going to do a little Google work. So the objective of this activity is to understand the rule of 72. The rule of 72 can help determine what interest rate you need to double your money. So this is kind of a cool thing. The formula is actually right here on your worksheet. So the rule of 72 happens to be kind of a mathematical anomaly that just happens to work as it's a rule of thumb. It's not a perfect math equation, but if you simply take 72 divided by the interest rate. So let's say we've been talking about earning 10% on our money. So if you earn 10%, we're not going to really use this percent, but 72 divided by 10 means that your money is going to double in 7.2 years. So if you invested $10,000 and earned a 10% rate of return, that 10,000 is going to turn into 20,000 in 7 years. Okay, so that's the rule of 72. And so for this exercise, the first part of it that we want to work on, oops, get back to blowing this thing up, is this. So why don't you guys randomly pick from some 3 things? So you can go to the internet and find a fund of what we get on these rates. So the textbook here suggests bankrate.com, but you can go, Yahoo Finance. Basically, just go to any financial website. If you just Google money market mutual fund, and go ahead and put in the chat box your answer, and I'll pick. Now, don't everybody start with money market mutual fund. Somebody do 3-year. Somebody do 3-year certificate. Somebody do growth stock mutual fund. Somebody do checking account. So that you guys all have different answers, and just tell me what they are, and I'll write them on the screen, and then you guys we'll use those as a group. Some of them might not necessarily have the name of a fund, although usually they'll put, like, if it's a Chase Bank or something for the checking account. Oh, the Rule of 72 worksheet is in your activity sheets, Hunter. So if you go down to Chapter 11 under Activities, one of them is called Rule of 72. But right now, I'd like you guys to Google and find some information so we can fill out this table. And pretty much whoever comes up with the first one, if it sounds like it's in the right ballpark, we'll just use whatever you put up there. And just find one of them. So somebody do a 5-year CD, somebody do passbook savings account, somebody do growth stock. Just kind of pick one. Hopefully we can fill out this worksheet fairly quickly as a group. And then you don't have to do the years to double. That's what we'll do together as a group. So this one we'll do together, but we need to find the rate of return and then maybe whatever the name is. All right, First Republic Bank. Jeffrey's got First Republic Bank for the passbook savings account. First Republic Bank. And did you get the interest rate, Jeffrey? We need the interest rate on that savings account. Okay, money market Citibank 1.75 from Xavier. Money market, okay. Citibank. So we got the Citibank money market at 1.75. Okay, so we'll use that. Thank you, Xavier. Well, I could try using my stylus here. Oh, there's that thing. I always found, I think my finger works about as good. All right, who else? Should be able to, gosh, we did our, we could almost pull out our scavenger hunt. I think we had a lot of these on your scavenger hunt exercise too. Could go back and look at that. All right, you guys working on this? We need to get some of the answers. There we go. Growth stock. Thank you, Hunter. 3 year. Oh, Hannah. Now they're flowing in. All right. Sorry. All right. Growth stock. We got a credit union, PenFed, with the growth stock mutual fund. Hunter, that's probably too low. The 1.4%. Look for. Well, unless that might be the return right now. See if you can get me a 1-year rate of return on the growth stock mutual fund, or a 5-year even, or something. So for the growth stock mutual fund, not just this quarter, because yeah, they're going to be garbage this year. All right, so Brooks, you got the 5-year CD at 1.173. All right. And that was from Community Direct. Community Direct, and the name's not too important, actually. Oops. It is important that I keep my screen level, though. All right, and 3-year, 1.85, okay? And again, normally the 3-year should be less than the 5-year, but that's okay. They could be different rates from different places. So that was Barclays from Hannah. Now, did somebody figure out a checking account one? They're usually pretty pathetic. It might be 0.0. I think, I don't even know what my bank pays. I've got some sort of pathetic interest rate, but we definitely need the checking account. Okay. Oh, Jeffrey did a bunch of Googling. Okay. So let's see. Oh, for passbook savings account, depends on the amount. Yeah, let's go with the less than 25,000, 0.05. So 0.05. Now that's 0.05%, people. That's not 5%. That's 0.05%. The checking account should be equally pathetic. Did anybody get a checking account one yet? Let me make this a little bigger. And then we still need that growth stock mutual fund. So checking account, growth stock mutual fund. And then we're going to use these answers to kind of go over a couple other things. And yeah, you can use anything under 25,000 for checking. Look at from Jeffrey's answer, it's kind of funny. The savings account, less than 25,000 is 0.05, but if you have $1 million in the savings account, it's 0.35%. So that goes to show you that that's good for your emergency fund, but not where you need your money. If you're a retiree, if you're 80 years old and you had already grown your investments to $1 million, then you might just want to just put that into an account like that just to keep it kind of nice and safe and warm if you want. But if you're not 80 years old, it doesn't belong in there. All right, so checking account. Is it hard to find? Let me, Hannah, why don't you open up your microphone? Tell me what's going on. I need to hear something why we haven't filled up this list yet.
I'm looking right now for a checking account.
Is it just hard to find? Like when you do checking account interest rate?
Yeah, it just kind of brings up like the average, not an actual checking account.
Okay, that could be. How about best? Try best checking account interest rate. There might be one company that says they've got the best or something. And I could see some of this being a little more difficult. And we can move on. I don't want to delay this too long, but I do want a growth stock mutual fund. Hunter, did you ever find a different rate that would be more of a 5-year average? Like you could put your PenFed credit union, unless that was a money market, but.
Yeah, one sec, I'm typing in right now.
Okay. Yeah, you guys could use one that we did on the previous investment scavenger hunt too. Okay, Fidelity Trend. There you go. 9.76. All right, looks good. 9.76. And then any luck with best checking account, Hannah? Our savings.
There's one from Citibank at 1% return.
Yeah, okay, 0.01. Let's use 0.01. That's what I was going to put in there because that is pretty real. I just like you guys to be able to go and actually get real data so that you know that we're not kidding around here. So let's call it 0.01. All right, so now get your calculators out and let's fill this sheet in. This should go a little bit quicker now. So money market mutual fund, we're going to take 72 divided by, I'll do the first one, I'll just kind of show the math here. 72 divided by 1.75, 1.759. And if somebody in the chat box, I'm not doing this myself on the calculator, but if you can put your answer, just the answer only for the money market mutual fund, you guys can get a little better. And that's what makes this nice. So 40 years, right? So it's going to take 40 years for your money to double. Now go ahead to your savings account. 72 divided by 0.05. 72 divided by 0.05. This one's going to be really pathetic. 1,440 years. Good luck with that investment, right? So it's not an investment at all. You put in $10,000, you're going to have to wait 1,400 years for your money to double to 20,000. Okay, the checking account's going to be equally disastrous. Let's go to the 3-year certificate of deposit. So I've got a CD. Dave Ramsey called them certificate of depression. 72 divided by 1.85. All right, 38. And then let's do the next one. So 38.9. And the 5-year. 41, so a little bit less with that one. So they're all in this 40 years though. You guys are going to be, you know, ready to retire in 40 years. And then finally, the growth stock mutual fund, Hunter, the 9.76, 72 divided by 9.76. That's in the range that we want to see. When are we going to double? 7.37 years. So remember, all of these are the years to double. So that is the rule of 72. It can come in really handy if you just want to look at something at a quick snapshot. Obviously, if we get into 18% rate of return, then we're going to do even better. All right, so 10-second pause for questions. All right, I'm going to clear this off. So make sure, hopefully you guys have your stuff written down. I do have it saved as a file if we need to, but in fact, let me do it a little bit differently too. Control print screen, okay. So clear. All right, so now, what is the annual interest rate that will cause your money to double in 4 years? So now we're going to use the rule of 72 a little bit differently and say, how long will it take to get 4 years to double? So if the equation is 72 divided by the interest rate equals the number of years, that's just called number of years to double, maybe YD. Now we can do a little bit of algebra here and take what annual interest rate will it cause the money to double in 4 years. So now I'm going to want to put a 4 over here. So now we'll make this a 4 and solve it. So now the 4, so 72 divided by 4, chat box me up, what did we get? 72 divided by 4 equals 18. So you need 18% rate of return. Is it possible, chat box, to get 18% on one of your cookies? Have we learned that that's possible to find an 18% rate of return? Chat box, can we get an 18% rate of return? Yes or no, at least 18%. Yes, all right. So here is my son's, I'm going to stop the share here. I want to show you my son's investment that he took some advice I had early on. So this is from one of his statements early on. So from 2018. I put him into American Century Investments, which happens to be a Kansas City headquartered company, because I thought it'd be cool. Him and I went down there and invested. So he's got all of his money in equities and the type of cookies that we're talking about. And so he has $4,770 at this point. This was in 2018. And so on the statement, his 1 year average was 14%. And his year-to-date average, what was it, the longer term, annual average since he started this in 2015 with a couple $1,000, and then he was putting in $50 a month since then. So we built it up in 2018. Then here's his statement in 2019, basically a year later. And it had grown. He'd been putting in $50 a month, but it had grown to $6,500. And here's his annual rate of return year to date. Can you guys see that? Reese, what number does that say? And why don't you unmute? What was his year to date return? Unmute, you're muted still. I'm going to have you verbalize this one.
Does that say 25%?
It does say 25%. 25%. So this is real, you guys. This is the stuff. This is just my son taking a little advice from this class. That's a 25% rate of return. This is his real money. And so he had $6,556 is what it had grown to. Now here's the last one that I'm going to show you. This was COVID crisis. He happened to just get his statement in. And remember, his amount was $6,566. Here's his COVID statement. It is now $5,278. So my son lost over $1,000 in the last 3 months from his investments. His rate of return, Reese, I'll just have you. What's his year-to-date rate of return there again?
21%.
Yeah, what's that little symbol in front of it, though?
Oh, negative 21%.
Negative. So my question to you is, did my son really have to reach into his pocket and pay $1,000 for the losses? No, right? So there's a difference between so sometimes with investing, my old mentor in real estate said that you are paper rich and cash poor. So on paper, when my son would do his consumer equity sheet that you guys need to know for the final, remember way back when we were talking about how you build wealth, and it's as what you own minus what you owe. Well, this is part of what he owns, and it went down, but it wasn't cash out of pocket, right? It was just a period of time. And so when the stock market corrects itself, hopefully we'll get back to those other levels that he was at. So we're in it for kind of a long-term gain. All right, questions or comments there? All right, so we've got Tanner has invested. We just got a few minutes left, so we'll kind of I'll help you guys through these since you've been working to give you a little nudge here. So Tanner has invested $500 for college. What rate of return must his investment get to double in 6 years? So if we're doubling in 6 years, let's see, is this already on this? Yeah, it is. Okay. So 72 divided by 6 would give you that answer for the $500 to turn into $1,000. Jared owes $2,000 on a credit card, so still not past baby step number 2. Charges an annual rate of 18%. If Jared stops making payments before the balance is due, how long will it be before the balance on his credit card reaches $4,000? So now we can think about owing money. If we have an 18% credit, we already did that one before, 72 divided by 18% was 4. So in 4 years, his $2,000 credit card that he got a whoopsie on ended up being 4% or 4,000. So his debt doubled. So this works for debts. It works for rainfall. The rule of 72 is anything that has a rate of change, you can look at it. So just to do one quick one here, I said that the inflation rate is 2%. So how long will it take the price of beer and chicken wings and a loaf of bread to double? 72 divided by 2 says that if you're buying a case of beer right now, if a case of beer was running $18, then it's going to cost $36. It's going to double in 72 divided by 2 is 36 years. So in 36 years, beer is going to double in price from 18 to 36. And that's why we have to factor in inflation into our long-term retirement planning. So Jared missed payment because of credit card, raised it to 24%. We just do it again. Emily gets a job with a 6% raise. So she's going to get a 6% raise every year. So that's nice. So when is her pay if she starts out at 25,000 and gets a 6% raise? 72 divided by 6 tells us when her 25,000 is going to turn into a $50,000 per year job. Oops, not 50%, 50,000. If you invested 250 at 16%, what are you going to have in 18 years? All right, so you guys can finish off this sheet. All right, class dismissed.